Welcome back to Real Estate is Crazy.
Hi.
I'm David Hagigi.
I'm Christina Smith.
And today we are going to watch and discuss with a wonderful side agent from Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah, Ben Garner. He's amazing.
Let's roll him.
Hello and welcome. I have Ben Garner with 212 Realty from out in Baltimore. I'm really excited to have you here today, Ben. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I am super excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you're with the same company, but you have your own brand, 212 Realty.
Yeah.
And what area do you work out there in Baltimore?
Really the greater Baltimore region. We go into Howard County, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel. We do a lot of business in Baltimore City, and that's where some of my most extreme stories come from. But yeah, we really service anywhere in the greater Baltimore metropolitan area.
Awesome. And you have several stories to share with us. The first was you were working with a buyer.
Yep.
And there was a pretty almost good, that could have been a serious situation. So why don't you share with us what happened?
Yeah, this was very early on in my career. I'd been licensed for like all of 7 minutes at this point. So I was working with a couple of investors. We were looking at some of the worst properties. This was in Hartford County, actually. We had 6 houses we were seeing that day. We get through 5 of them. We're on our last one, and this place it's a dump. Everything else was a dump, but this was, I guess, extra.
The worst dump of them all.
Exactly.
A big steaming pile of dumpness.
I think that's a polite way to put it.
Yeah.
So as a husband and wife, we did the main level. We went upstairs. Surprisingly, everything was going well. And then we walk into the basement. So as we're walking down the steps, the wife's in front of me, then it's myself, and then the husband behind us. And I could tell the wife was getting a little nervous. So I tell her, I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll go down first. The basement looked like something out of one of the Saw movies. So it was like super creepy and dingy. And I'm walking down the steps. And as I walk down the steps, I turn to the wife and I say, hey, you might want to be careful. These steps feel a little loose. And as soon as I said that, the staircase collapsed. And
oh my God.
We both fell, I'd say 6 to 8 feet. I was one step ahead of her and I landed first and I kind of caught her, at least braced her fall a little bit. But yeah, we fell through the steps and the husband's standing at the top and he's screaming to see if everybody's okay. And I'm just making sure like nobody broke like a leg or anything like that.
Yeah. Was everyone okay? Oh my gosh.
Fortunately, we were. She had a little bit of a limp. I think that might have been like shock, but fortunately we were okay. And this was about 6 years ago. So I don't know now that I'm 6 years older if my bones would withstand that kind of a fall. But yes.
I don't think my bones can handle sitting on a couch when I'm on my computer for a few minutes, let alone falling through a staircase.
Yeah. And it was just like, it was one of those moments like, what just happened? And we look back and like, we're fortunate nobody got hurt. We really are.
Yeah. Was this the first time you were meeting them or had you shown them houses before? Because that would have been a terrible icebreaker.
This was the first time I met them.
Oh, no.
And we did continue to work together. They appreciated the fact that like I offered to call like an ambulance if they needed one.
Yeah.
I did call the listing agent and I told her what happened. And as soon as I said like, yeah, we're okay, she then said, all right, I'm going to send you a hold harmless agreement.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah.
What a jerk. Yeah. What a jerk move.
It definitely rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't know any better. I called my team leader and, his first question was making sure everybody was okay and nobody need to go see a doctor or anything.
Well, of course, that's the right thing to do. You don't just.
Yeah. But I hadn't even heard of a hold harmless agreement at that point.
Yeah. Well, because that's an important topic is that if someone gets injured on your property, they could sue you and you'd have to use your homeowner's insurance.
Yeah.
So, you were injured on their property because of the condition of the staircase. She definitely should have made sure that the house was safe before people were coming through.
100%. And these were not abnormally large people. These were, it was just 3 of us standing on a staircase. It's just nobody had been in that house for weeks, I'd say, and nobody had
Yeah.
taken care of that house in probably decades.
Yeah, something for people to think about. Man, if you're walking through a home and you can see that it's really dilapidated, and you just got to be careful. You just got to watch your step. Thank goodness you were in front of her.
Yeah. And now I instill this with everybody on my team. If we're going to go look at a house, anytime it requires a hold harmless agreement, we get one of the other agents to go with us. Like,
Yeah.
just to make sure that everybody's safe. I've called friends, family, I've called my wife. Hey, if I don't call you back in 20 minutes, like, this house looks dangerous.
Yeah. You know what? That's true. My husband has the GPS on my phone so he can see how long I've been at a property. And if it's been more than, like you said, 20 or 30 minutes, that's a problem.
And I've also learned, and that was a good experience, it is also okay to say no. There are qualified contractors that know where to walk on joists and know where soft spots are, that, you know what, let's bring them in. I'll open the door. I'll tell you everything about the property. I'll tell you what it's worth when it's finished, but you can have somebody else walk through it. I'll lock up.
And you sent me a picture of these stairs, which I will have the producer share, like bing right now. And then, and speaking of contractors, I mean, crazy stuff doesn't always happen with just the buyer side. You've had some crazy experiences when you've listed a home for sale.
Yeah, this was definitely my craziest listing. This was a couple in Linthicum Heights. It's a little bit south of the city. They had warned me about the pool before I arrived, and they warned me.
Was it a soft warning?
It was like, oh, we got something we want to show you out back.
We got a couple issues with the pool.
Yeah, and I walked through the house. They'd really taken good care of it. They'd lived there for 30 years, and it was well maintained, maybe a little dated, but you know what? It wasn't the worst that I've seen.
Yeah.
And they kept saying, well, just wait until you see the pool. And I saw the pool sticking out of the ground.
Oh my gosh. We're going to post a picture of it so that you guys can get a good idea, because when you described it to me, I couldn't quite envision what this was. And what do you think caused it? So here's the picture. And then you're going to tell us, what did they say happened to the pool?
Yeah, so they said that they were asleep one night about 6 months ago, and they heard this loud boom in the backyard, and they walked out back, and the concrete, now this was an in-ground pool. This is not an above-ground pool. The concrete had cracked in the middle of the pool. Their thought is water got underneath of it, froze, expanded, and then caused a crack into the pool. And then it just kept happening because they didn't use it for a couple of years. And the husband went outside, and it kind of looked like the Titanic. The pool was cracked in half and was sticking out. I mean, I'm about 5'10", and the pool was over my head. Like, the concrete was over my head. And the gap, I could have fallen in between the gap between the concrete and where the pool originally was.
That's so dangerous. Did you end up calling anybody out to take a look? I mean, it looks like you said, a pit that someone could just fall down into.
Yeah. We actually had to get 3 different contractors to go look, and no one had ever seen anything like that before. And fortunately, we found somebody who worked in concrete that was able to break the pool up and then carry it away in pieces and then fill everything in with dirt. And, you got a big giant dirt mound in your backyard, but it's better than a concrete pool sticking out.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you have buyers coming through. I mean, did you fix it before the buyers came through or afterwards?
Yeah, we had a buyer come through, and it was in the condition that it was in, but they were working on it. And we had a big disclaimer, and they signed all the proper paperwork. I mean, you couldn't miss it. But based off of the contractor's timeline, the seller's timeline, we got everything on the market. We were a little selective with some of the pictures, but we warned everyone, and I made sure to reach out to every buyer's agent and just say, look, there's this craziness happening with the pool. It's being taken care of. And we found a buyer that was able to look past it. They saw what the yard space would look like without the pool, and as long as we got everything in writing, they were good with moving forward, and they made it to closing.
That's great. I mean, I didn't know this statistic. I heard it, but only 13% of people can actually envision what something can be, which is why it's kind of important to fix those things, because the rest of them, they come through and they look at something they cannot see past. They can't see past the bright neon orange, paint on the wall, or the giant pool sticking up out of the earth that's going to swallow them whole. They can't see that as a fixable thing. And then they end up passing on a great house because of it. So at least you thought ahead and made sure you got the quotes and made sure that they knew it could be remedied. Yeah. That's crazy.
And we definitely had the right buyer. They wanted to be in this particular neighborhood. The buyer was a contractor as well. So
that's good.
He was comfortable.
He knew.
Knowing, hey, this is going to be something that's fixed. And we were super above board with everything. So that was really helpful.
Yeah, because there's a lot of realtors that wouldn't be above board with it. They would just try to pass it off and be like, oh, no, it's not a problem. And then next thing you know, you've got what are those pits that are just, people used to dump trash in them in like the 1950s. I can't think of it right now, but oh man,
have like a giant.
I got a brain fart. I can't think of it. It's it's a sinkhole.
Yeah, sinkhole.
What if it's a giant sinkhole in their yard, and the agent's like, oh yeah, no big deal. You just fill it with dirt, and then you buy the house and you find out it's a sinkhole. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that realtors will do.
And I've been on the other side of that, where look, this is a real issue. I had a situation where the lights were literally flickering in the house because it wasn't getting enough power to the house. And the agent's like, yeah, the house just kind of does that. That's not safe.
So are you sure it wasn't because there was like ghosts or something in the house?
I mean, we could have gotten like lit some like mace or burned some sage and maybe
mace. Mace the ghost.
Yeah.
Some sage for sure.
Yes,
anything with flickering lights, it either needs a light bulb or sage. It's just one of the two things.
I was hoping it was just a light bulb, but yeah, that house did not get enough juice, and that was like a real problem.
Yeah. Well, but not everything in real estate is bad. There are some crazy situations that are actually really positive and really good, and they happen once in a while, and it kind of takes you by surprise when it does. You have a similar story.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories because it has a very, very happy ending. And it also helps that these are for two of my really good friends. So I'm happy that they were involved with such a happy ending. So we were looking at a house in my neighborhood in Hamden, and they went ahead, they wrote an offer. We were doing our home inspection, and the buyer was talking to the neighbor next door. The buyer, in my terms, has family that's OG Baltimore. And her grandfather was one of the fire marshals at one of the local jurisdictions. And
people in those positions, everybody knows them.
Yeah. And we were talking to the neighbor who was a firefighter and recognized her last name and asked, hey, is this your grandfather? And she was like, yeah, that's my grandfather. And he's like, oh, he's such a great guy. So we finish up with the inspection. There was only a couple of things, nothing really major. The biggest thing was like the fence was kind of falling down, but that's not a deal breaker for these buyers. We come back for the final walkthrough and the fence is gone. We're like, what? Everything.
So I always say this realtor brain tries to figure out what happened. And like what was my first thought would have been someone stole the fence.
Exactly. And
someone stole the fence.
Everything was so smooth up until this point. I go into like full CSI mode. I'm like taking screenshots of like pictures and like pictures of the fence, and like we got like schematics and
looking
gizmos.
For tracks.
Yeah, I'm like dusting for prints, and we end up calling the listing agent, and he, I guess, knew the neighbors or the sellers, or sellers talked to the neighbors, and they replaced the fence that was falling over as a kind gesture to thank the buyer and her grandfather.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and they had this beautiful new fence, and like everything just worked out to such a good feel-good moment. But for
Yeah.
like a split second, like I am like, we're going to court and like we're going to document.
You're like, someone's going down. They stole the crappy fence that was over in the
and
yard.
I'm like, and I'm glad I did that. And they give me a hard time to this day. It's like, you jumped right into action. But I'm glad I did that because, you know, my buyer, she was a first time buyer, and you know,
Yeah.
her husband, you know, wasn't there for the walkthrough, and we just want to make sure that last walkthrough before you go to closing, you had that feel good moment of like, yes, I'm making the right decision. And then when you don't, like, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think the worst thing, and I've learned this out here, sellers should never turn off their electric. And they do it all the time. Instead of transferring the service, they shut it off and they forget to empty out the ice trays.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I do is jet over there, and it's happened so many times. Water, you know, the ice melts, it leaks all over the floors and ruins the floors right when you're supposed to close escrow.
Yep.
So that's like the first thing I do. I say, please don't shut off the power, because I don't want to deal with melted ice all over these hardwood floors in this kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even worse, if they do it in the wintertime and a pipe bursts.
You know what, though? We don't have that here. So, you know, Baltimore real estate is different from state to state. It just is. So what is something weird or crazy about real estate that people should know, especially if they're moving there and they're not familiar with buying a home?
So Baltimore is one of like 3 areas that still has this. It's an archaic system called ground rent. And basically what it is it's a system that was set up like 100, 200 years ago, where the 1%ers, the wealthy individuals, they were allowed to purchase land, and they would lease it out to us common folk to build houses on. And you would pay a semi-annual rent, a marginal amount. You know, I've seen some as low as like $25. I've seen some as high as $250 every 6 months. And if you didn't pay it, they could put a lien on your house. So that's been passed down from generation to generation, and it still exists. I'd say out of every, 10, 20 houses we sell, 1, 2, 3 of them have ground rent on them. Even the first house that I bought had ground rent on it. So
I've never heard of that ever.
And it makes 0 sense. I wish the state would get rid of it, but there are people that actually invest in ground rents, and they buy them and they collect, money every 6 months. And if you don't pay it, you can still get a lien on your house. So,
oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
It really is. And chances are, if there's ground rent on a house, the person that owns it either is dead or doesn't know that they have it. So the solution to that is then the seller has to escrow money. It's this whole big to-do. They escrow it for 3 years and then it's refunded to them. I just wish Maryland would get rid of it entirely.
Oh my gosh, that's weird. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. I mean, of course, we don't have things like that because, I don't know, we're California and people came out here to, find gold.
Right.
They didn't invest in land and do ground leases like smart people. Like we didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
And then I'll take it one step further. There's one street in my neighborhood where usually ground rent is by the address. There's one street where it's one ground rent for the entire street. And there's one individual who owns it and he's still with us and he collects. So if you buy...
So he must have inherited it.
Yeah, it's probably been...
So his ancestors owned the land, people built on it, and that's insane.
Yeah.
How old is he? Is he going to pass on soon?
I mean, I'm sure that's something that he's got that he's going to give to one of his heirs. I mean, maybe he'll give it to me. That would be nice.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even know what to say about that. I've never heard of that. And if someone's moving there, they would need to understand what that is. So if someone's moving to your area, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Easiest way is to go to our website. It's homesby212.com, and that's plural. So homesby212.com. You can always give me a call. I'm at 240-216-7841. Or you can send me an email, ben@homesby212.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to put your contact information in the show notes, but I really appreciate you speaking with us and sharing your stories. And hey, if you come up with any other crazy situations, you know who to call.
Absolutely. No, there's plenty more. Baltimore is a very interesting town with lots of history, but I think with history comes interesting home sales.
With history comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Do you have people who have like cemeteries in their homes? I know that's like an offshoot.
I don't, but this is another crazy story. This was in a neighborhood called Westminster, which is like 45 minutes northwest of the city. And we're doing our walkthrough, and we did find headstones on the property. And one of them said Cody, like Cody. And we're like, oh no, like we immediately thought the worst. Cody was their dog.
Oh,
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But we, like, for a second, like all of our hearts broke. It was like a moment.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So was it one headstone or multiple headstones?
I think there was one for the dog, the cat, and maybe like a hamster.
So was it pet cemetery?
Pet
With
cemetery.
headstones?
Yeah.
They really loved their pets. Jeez.
Yeah, they really did.
Well, thank you so much, Ben. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll definitely have you back soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. That's it.
Awesome.
I'm so excited. That was so good.
Awesome.
That's like 5 little subclips.
Yeah, they're quick. I mean, but I felt like I got on a roll there. I'm like, oh, I got another story.
Yeah, you know what? Hey, if you think of anything, like you message me and be like, hey, I thought of another story. Or, hey, my team member has a story. So definitely use this.
I should connect you with
say,
Megan. Megan
yeah.
almost had to go to the U.S. Embassy to get a seller to sign, like, from Pakistan. It was a whole to do. I think Megan's now on like a list or something.
Is it a good list or a bad list?
I mean, I don't control the list, but yeah, she was calling around like...
She on the naughty list?
I mean, it worked out. She went way above and beyond for her client, but like she called Pakistan to like get this seller to sign. Like, how do you call Pakistan?
You know, I don't know, but it's kind of when you're thrust into a situation, that's often when you have to like figure this shit out.
Yeah.
And then you end up doing weird things.
And that was her first transaction.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And she's still in real estate?
She's still in real estate. She's still in real estate. I had to promise her, I'm like, I promise they're not all like this. Like, this is weird.
You can't promise that, though, because
that was really
a lot of them are. Like, the big majority of them are pretty nuts.
Yeah, yeah. She definitely dove into the deep end very quickly.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to stop recording. Boop.